Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining from data center to cloud, making the move smarter. I'm Chappie from Tempo, and I'll be your host today. And we're joined by Kelly Doyle and Evan Golden from Atlassian, as well as Snea Cruz from Praecipio, one of our key solution partners. Now, today's session is all about helping you understand why now is the time to start planning your move to Jira Cloud and how you can do that with confidence. Now, before we get this webinar kicked off, I'd like to know a little bit more about our beautiful audience here and launch our first poll. All right, so what we want to know is get an idea of people on this call. How far along are you in your cloud migration journey, as well as what is your biggest motivator for moving to cloud at this point in time? I'm going to give this a few seconds for people to answer. This information is always great for us, especially when we do follow-up. Just to know where you are, we know as much about you as possible, and what these challenges are that the people are seeing lately, as opposed to ones we already know about. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Share results. So it looks like a lot of us on the call are just starting to explore options or actively planning the move. Excellent. And biggest motivator for moving to cloud, not surprising. Atlassian's 2029 data center end of life. All right, excellent. Thank you so much. Now, to introduce our cast here, as I said, my name's Chappie. I'm one of the senior product marketing managers here at Tempo. With us are Kelly Doyle, one of the group managers for cloud migrations, Evan Golden, the principal cloud migrations manager at Atlassian, and Snea Cruz, the field CTO at Praecipio, one of our solution partners. So here's what we'll cover today. I'll start by framing the cloud migration landscape, why this shift is happening, and why waiting isn't the best strategy. Then Kelly and Evan will share the strategic vision behind Atlassian Cloud and what customers are gaining from that move. And then Snea will bring the partner's perspective, what real migrations look like, what can slow them down, and how to overcome challenges. And finally, we'll wrap up with a quick look at how Tempo's cloud apps make this transition even more valuable. And we'll end with a panel discussion and Q&A. Before we get to the content, I have to ask one more poll question. What is your biggest concern about migrating to the cloud as of now? Is it data and security compliance, downtime and disruption, cost and budgeting, app compatibility, or the over popular change management and user adoption? Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Looks like we're all across the board here. So good, because we'll be talking about a lot of this during the presentation as well. So thank you again so much for your participation. Now, let's start with the big picture. So Atlassian announced that data center products will be supported until December of 2029, which sounds far away, but it's really not. Large-scale migrations can take a good amount of time and require coordination across tools, data, and people. So while 2029 is the official sunset, teams that wait until 2028 or even 2029 could be rushing under pressure. So the earlier you start, the more time you have to plan, test, and migrate successfully. In addition to taking advantage of cloud-only features and functionality, both in the Atlassian and Tempo side. Now, moving to cloud isn't just where Jira is hosted. It's about transforming how teams work. Cloud enables faster updates, built-in automation, and easier scalability. IT teams can spend less time maintaining infrastructure and more time delivering value. And for project leaders and PMOs, it opens the door to modern collaboration, smarter insights, and seamless integrations. It isn't just a lift and shift, it's an opportunity to modernize. Now, every year, every month, or every day you delay migration, the complexity increases. Teams grow, customizations pile up, and dependencies multiply. Wait until the deadline means facing more data to move, more users to train, and fewer resources available to help. And from a business perspective, you're missing out on a new cloud-only features that drive innovation right now. The migration is inevitable. The question is whether you'll do it on your own terms or under deadline pressure. So now I'm going to turn it over to Kelly and Evan to share what the vision is from an Atlassian perspective.
Awesome. Thanks, Chappie. So as we have talked about already, we have announced officially end of life of data center coming in 2029. So the program that we are referring to this is called Atlassian Ascend. So this is our company-wide migration and customer success program that consolidates all resources, tooling, and motions to really help each of you move to Atlassian Cloud. And why now? We truly believe that at this point in our journey, the vast majority of customers have a clear path to cloud. We weren't ready for this in years past when we end of life server, but we are now ready for as many customers as we imagine possible and get them into cloud to let them innovate faster and deliver more value across security, scale, AI, and admin experience. So between now and March 28th of 2029, we will continue providing technical support, critical security fixes, and connectors to Atlassian Cloud for DC products, but new DC subscription purchases and expansions will only be available until March 30th, 2028. So the key message I really want to reiterate to each of you guys here is don't wait until the last year. That is 2029. Like it does seem like a very far away, but this is really going to compress the ability for you to have really clean and clear testing windows, and it just increases risk for your overall migration the longer you wait. It also increases the risk for you guys to get really great dedicated support from my team, which is the cloud migrations team and the FastShift delivery managers. The longer you wait, the more compact we'll see the volume of our requests from customers. And if you get started early, we'll be able to dedicate more time as part of our complementary program. So if you go to the next slide, Chappie. So when I refer to the fact that we believe our product is ready for a vast majority of our customers, this is kind of what I mean by this. So we have more data residency than we've ever had before. We have more admin controls with some of the key shipping dates that you can see here. We have more cloud options. We have private cloud, isolated cloud. We have FedRAMP moderate now available to our customers. And you can just see here on the right, just the amount of like users that we've been able to increase these different options for. So continue to be making great strides. I do want to point out though that we never plan to have one-to-one feature parity on DC versus cloud. And this is specifically for the fact that things will look different in cloud, and that is on purpose. We wanted to make sure that cloud is a new experience and a better experience overall, but of course, that's going to take some time to adjust your users. And that's why a really great change management plan is always something we highly recommend, because there will be things that don't work one-to-one, but as long as we can understand what your goals are in cloud and what you're truly trying to accomplish, we can help you come up with the ways of doing that that are native to cloud. You go to the next slide. This is where FastShift comes into play. So you've heard us announce end-of-life data center. I'm sure there's concerns around how you have the resourcing, how you have the time to get to cloud. And we're also trying to get you guys to cloud as fast as possible so that you can realize that value and start innovating, start saving on maintenance, start saving on overhead. And so FastShift is the complementary program we've come up with to address those exact things. So again, this is where the FastShift delivery managers / the cloud migration managers, we come into play and really provide that assistance for you from the purchase of your cloud license to getting you landed in cloud. And we are, again, that complementary service that tries to accelerate that migration by providing hands-on migration support via one of our 3 flavors that Evan will talk about here in a minute, but just providing that dedicated team, high-touch technical resources with advanced tooling to essentially reduce your migration timeline from years to a matter of months.
All right. Thank you so much, Kelly. So I'm going to go ahead and start by talking about the different stages in basically cloud transformation support and the teams that support them. Kelly brushed on FastShift, and this is kind of going to double click on that. So we start with cloud assessment and strategy. This is where you're going to primarily work with our pre-sales team, your account executive, your solution engineer. This is really jumping into cloud in a broader sense as to what your overall strategy is when transforming into cloud. Notice that there are other teams there as well. You have your solution partner, like Praecipio, who is there right from the beginning, as well as if you have advisory services, they would be here, they would be working at this stage with you as well. Where the FastShift team comes into play is right at number 2, which is migration planning and execution. So as Kelly mentioned, you'll have a delivery manager or a cloud migration manager that's working with you directly to really plan out that migration and how it's going to be executed. And then you'll see that in addition to that, we'll still have the solution partner all the way through all of the stages, as well as the advisory services. And then when you look at number 3, this is that adoption and change management. Kelly had mentioned how important change management is when we move into cloud. fast via the FastShift program, we want to make sure that change management is continuous, often, and basically um, basically has enough information so that your users feel comfortable in their transition and adoption to cloud. Next slide. So now I want to go into each one of the roles and responsibilities that are part of that transformation. So the FastShift team, basically our job is to help accelerate your cloud migration from years to months. I'm going to show you a case study where we worked with Praecipio on a migration where we did just that. Where enterprise grade migrations, enterprise size migrations, what in the past would take many months, we've been able to use FastShift in order to reduce that time significantly. So how do we do that? Well, we do it in different ways. One is that we have more technical hands-on support from our engineering at Atlassian, and that is for basically your core data. So like your core Jira data, your core Confluence JSM data, anything that migrates with our CMA tools, Atlassian has different ways that we can help you migrate. We call it like a hands-on backup where we can migrate directly off backups. We can migrate directly off of access to infrastructure. We can even do basically over-the-shoulder assistance as well. So in addition to the engineering support, we also have more reachability into Atlassian, into the different teams here. For example, for enterprise migrations, we'll have an executive sponsor assigned. We'll have stronger access into engineering and product, and we'll also have different, quicker escalation paths as well to help remove impediments faster. Now, when you think of advisory services and how they complement, they're going to be helping with your informed decisions on your overall platform strategy to reduce risks. So they're going to help with things like guidance on configurations and really how to maximize the value of cloud through like feature usage. And then when you work with solution partners as well, they're going to help with those really advanced services like strategic transformation management, third-party app integration, the migration of basically anything that's not incorporated in our CMA tools, and also like customizations and much more. Now, note that the FastShift program itself does not cover the solution partner or advisory services costs. We are a complementary service, but their involvement in FastShift can deliver just a really strong cloud transformation outcome. Next slide, please. So I want to go ahead and cover a case study where Atlassian, we worked with Praecipio, working with a travel technology company. It's a large enterprise migration, 16,000 users for Jira, 16,000 users for Confluence, 12 plus apps across the different products. For Jira, the scope was 1,200 projects, 5.4 million issues, 5 terabytes of attachments. It actually took 45 days to complete with 2 test migrations and UAT. This is because we leveraged the FastShift program and again had that additional engineering support, reachability, and the ability to help with things like change management. And then with Confluence, we were looking at 20,000 spaces, 4.5 million pages, 6 terabytes of attachments, and we did that within 50 days. And that included the 2 test migrations plus UAT. So all in all, we were able to complete this migration, this large migration, within 3 months for all products and apps. So what were the key success factors? Basically, we had really good extensive collaboration between the partner, the customer, and Atlassian. So for all migrations, we do pre-flight checks with our tooling to make sure that your products are ready to migrate. Sometimes they take longer than other times. And this particular migration was showing pre-flight checks of 36 plus hours for 20 projects just because of the complexity. We were able to resolve technical issues through the FastShift program to reduce the pre-checks on those 20 projects to 8 minutes. So significant reduction in time, which really helps for the overall migration, the overall migration timeframe and schedule. We also leveraged a lift and shift strategy based on data that we collected, whether it be through just assessing guardrails and data shape and working with a partner on a really good plan and strategy in order to help support that. The original plan itself had 8 migration phases. So if you think about that, that's eight separate migrations where with lift and shift, we're able to take all the data and move it over to cloud over the course of one migration window. Confluence migrated in March, Jira in April. We migrated in 11 hours or less with less than 40 hours of downtime. So typically what we like to do is migrate over a weekend. And then with that weekend, you're able, with 40 hours of downtime, you're able to have enough time then after that to still do your post-migration fixes, all your post-migration tasks and activities, and your validation testing so your users can come online on Monday. What also really helped and success was the partner handling some of the real detailed process engineering, marketplace app migrations, and change management. Next slide.
Awesome. Thanks, Evan. Yeah, that was a great example of how we partnered with Atlassian and the FastShift program to really accelerate that client's migration to cloud. Now that we've kind of covered some of Atlassian's vision and how FastShift works, I'm going to give you a little bit of our view from Praecipio's view from completing hundreds of migrations within the field. One of the main things we see when we talk to organizations today is that we really see them falling into two camps. And both of these camps can succeed, right? It's just really got to be honest about where you are and what you're looking to get from this cloud migration. That first path is really around strategic transformation. We have teams that are saying, we need to migrate, but let's also clean up this 10 years of technical debt that we've built within our data center. They want to start standardizing workflows across different teams, retire legacy apps, or consolidate their app footprint, right? Modernize some of their agile practices. Most of these organizations typically start planning and understanding that alignment and creating that vision 2 to 3 months prior to those deadlines of migrating, right? They see cloud really as a catalyst to change, not just as a compliance requirement to get to cloud. That second path is really around teams that are under budget constraints, tight timelines. They have end-of-life pressure. They just really need to get to cloud for those other reasons. They need the speed and certainty more than they do need transformation. And that's fine, right? We can execute fast. We've seen it. But you have to just be very honest about that scope and what's in scope and what you're going to give up when going to cloud or actually achieve while getting to cloud. So the critical pattern that we see, right, is that the migrations that struggle happen when organizations aren't really honest about where they are, where they want to go, and what they want to get by going there. Or they skip to discovery altogether and really hit a lot of surprises while they're making this migration move. And there's some Forrester research out there that Atlassian migration shows that organizations that do assessments up front complete their migrations 30 to 40% faster and report significantly higher ROI because of adoption. It really prevents all of those surprises that you often see during migrations. Next slide, please, Chappie. So with all this migration experience, we often see 3 critical decisions that separate success from struggles. So let's talk through them, right? First off, it's that data complexity problem. What are you migrating, right? Organizations that look at 10 to 15 years of data and they panic, right? Custom fields nobody remembers creating, workflows that maybe aren't used or nobody understands or overly complex with a lot of handoffs between them, projects that haven't been touched in multiple years, right? A lot of times we see clients with the instinct, let's just move everything to be safe. Who knows when we'll need it later? But that reality really creates, slow, expensive, and messy migrations. You're dragging technical debt forward and paying to maintain it in cloud. And as Kelly mentioned, those 2 different instances are very different, right? So how do we really take advantage of cloud is part of that reason you want to look and clean up prior to. So what do successful organizations do? They treat migrations as spring cleaning. What is actively used? What's business critical? What's legacy baggage we don't need to bring with us? So clean migration data just migrates faster. So don't let we might need it someday really drive the scope of what you're bringing over. Really think about the business outcomes you're trying to get to. Decision 2, what's your app strategy? We all know that many of the data center to cloud apps and marketplace vendors out there, the apps aren't one-to-one. Feature parity doesn't always exist. Sometimes there's some apps that don't even migrate at all. So we often see organizations catching this mid-migration versus really having that plan up ahead, and it creates massive delays. Another big key thing to call out is app strategy requires security, right? You have to go do those security and compliance checks with all of those third-party vendors. So starting those early are always going to benefit you as well, because again, you find out you can't go to cloud with one of your app vendors, that's going to cause a massive delay. So you're not just looking and doing a quick app audit, you need to make sure that you're doing a full audit and understanding in advance. Does the version exist? Is the vendor got the right security and compliance? If not, what's our alternative path? Can we leverage native features? Are there other apps that we should replace instead? So again, app compatibility we often see causes many of those delays, and it's 100% preventable with early discovery. And lastly, we see that IT is ready to move. Leadership sees this move as a, just a pure deadline we to hit, but a lot of business units and end users are really skeptical or resistant. This is often the biggest blocker, and it's not a technical blocker, it's an organizational one, right? So we want to make sure that you're treating this as a true change program. Again, those aren't one-to-one instances. People are going to see things. They're going to feel differently within the cloud. How do you ensure that they're ready to move and have the right change program in place, communication strategy in place, and adoption strategy? Technology is really honestly, it's the easier part of migrating. We've migrated billions of issues over time. You saw those numbers Kelly showed earlier. That's a solved problem. Where migration struggle is in the adoptions, right? Users can't find things. All those workflows feel different. Nobody explained what or why and how things change. So successful organizations, they don't treat it as an IT project. They treat it as organizational change. They involve stakeholders early. What are your concerns? What makes this successful for you, right? They plan that 30 to 60 days of post-migration support. It's not just a cutover and you're on your own, go figure it out. Getting that organizational stakeholder buy-in and understanding and having the right change and communications program really creates better, more successful migrations. Organizations that don't, they're still dealing with the problem 6 months post-migration, right? The complexity, user adoption starting to fail, things like that. So key takeaway, right, is plan for people and process changes as seriously as you plan a technical migration. Next slide, please, Chappie. So what does a well-executed migration actually look like, right? Let me walk you through kind of the 4 key phases we see within successful projects, whether you're a 500-person team or 10,000-person enterprise with multiple instances being consolidated. It always starts with that discovery and planning. And this aligns to even what Evan mentioned earlier, right? That upfront strategy and assessment, what are we going to do? This is where you're answering those foundational questions. What are we using today? You're taking that full inventory of projects, workflows, custom fields, apps, integrations. What must we actually migrate that are business critical versus what's nice to have? What are our deal breakers for cloud? Who are our power users? Who are our skeptics? How do we make sure we create that alignment? Because again, for those changes, we're going to need the right cheerleaders and stakeholders involved to make sure that we can get the teams on board. Typically this is pretty lightweight, 2 to 6 weeks to do kind of that discovery planning and alignment. And it always depends on that complexity of your organization. But again, every hour that we do an assessment typically saves 5 to 10 hours of execution or later problems. This is where you catch the surprises while they're still manageable. And it's not, 3 months in when you're running a couple tests and you realize that something suddenly discovers, there's a critical gap in what you're doing. So second phase around this would be your solution design and architecture, right? Now we're about to get tactical about the how. How will your cloud instance be structured? What apps are going to migrate? Which ones are getting replaced? What's going to native functionality? Are we going to do a big bang cutover or more of a phased rollout? What's our training and communications plan, right? This is where critical decisions happens. We can choose whether, we're going to leverage Atlassian FastShift to migrate a little quicker. We're going to use the native tools. We can do a manual migration or a hybrid approach. What's our archival strategy, right? All of these different ways that we can approach it have pros and cons, again, depending on that complexity. And typically, again, we see this more in a 3 to 6 week timeframe. And it really allows us to build a flexible architecture so we can accommodate unexpected changes, right? Be agile about our migration so that we can always ensure that we're having the right mitigation plans in place so that there aren't any surprises. And, because as we all know, rigid plans always break under pressure. And then phase 3 really focused around, testing UAT and pilots. This is where the rubber meets the road, right? It's one of the most undervalued phases in the entire process. But this is where we can start testing things, seeing what's the difference, getting users involved, right? Conducting that end user acceptance testing. We can execute pilots with representative user groups. This is especially important as we're starting to modernize and wanting to change workflows, right? This is getting that buy-in and ensuring that we can have the right adoption plans in place for as we go live with these migrations. Can't say enough about test migrations, technical validation. Does everything move correctly? Does it look different? What are those deltas? What do we need to accommodate for? UAT, again, getting people involved and getting them in there early so you can understand what are going to be those risks and those gaps that you want to make sure that you're accounting for. Then we can do pilot rollouts, right? Whether you do it in phase or those big bang lifts and shifts. Again, there's all different approaches. Those are the things we want to plan up front. And typically, again, we can see these happening within 4 to 8 weeks. We can get quick UAT and feedback. Again, those smaller migrations can move a little bit quicker. Those large, complex, we're consolidating a lot of instances, might take a little bit more time. Really, organizations that skip these phases of that planning and that testing and the UAT, that's where we really see that kind of 3x increase in what it's going to take and that less adoption that happens once you do go live. The iterative approach is really your safety net. And then, again, very important, hypercare and support, right? Post-migration optimization happens here. This is where we kind of connect everything together. You want to make sure that you have plans for your 30, 60, 90 days of support immediately past post-migration. Help with user questions. Hey, I can't find where this is. Where is it now? Or we used to do this. What does it look like now? Making sure that you, again, have that communication, the training, the enablement, the adoption as a main focus. Understanding, what's happening. You can start seeing real-time troubleshooting, right? If there's integrations not happening, we can be able to address that all quickly and immediately. And then after stabilization, this is where you can now, again, start optimizing more for cloud. You're getting to use the cloud native features. You can start adopting AI, different things, new automation capabilities, right? Enhanced reporting. You're refining workflows here based on what you're learning during the migration. You're retiring additional technical debt. You're removing some of the complexities that were built within data center. And this is really to help ensure that your teams are getting the full value and cloud native features. So for simple migrations, again, you're looking kind of 3 to 4 months from all the way from that assessment to go live. And sometimes for those complex migrations where with heavy customizations, lots of integrations, requires a little bit more heavy testing and compliance. You're looking, more towards that 9, 12 months from an end-to-end process again. Your timeline's always going to vary based on how much transformation versus pure migration you're pursuing. So if you're starting to plan and you're waiting till 2028, you're kind of already late to the party. As Kelly mentioned, FastShift program might have queues at that point. Partners capacity might be scarce to find a partner to support you. And then you're really forced into kind of an emergency mode versus really taking that strategic plan and getting to cloud. Next slide, please, Chappie. So the pattern we really see, right? Successful organizations, they look at all those phases we just talked about as essential. They don't just skip them. They don't skip discovery. They don't skip testing and pilots to save budget. And they always plan for that larger hypercare and optimization ongoing as it goes on. Here's the 3 key takeaways I'd want you to remember, right? Successful migrations, they're not reactive. They're strategic. Start early while you have options. Second, it's not a one-size-fits-all, right? Match your approach to reality. What is it that you're really looking to get? What can you leave behind? And where can you gain those different efficiencies? Both of these can succeed. And then third, it's really about change management. It's not just a technical project. Technology is the easy part. Your people and processes are where you win or lose. Organization treating cloud as an opportunity to improve, not just a deadline to hit. Those are the ones that are more often thriving post-migration. So again, if you're waiting till 2028 to start planning, you're not really planning. You're reacting at that point. And reactive migrations are expensive, stressful, and rarely optimized for anything. So, the time to really start thinking strategically is today and not when your options have narrowed. And Chappie, I'll turn this over to you since we've talked about the strategic approach and migration journey. So tell us about Tempo.
Yeah, thank you so much, Neha. And thank you, Kelly and Evan. So where does Tempo fit in this journey? So our suite of cloud apps are designed to help organizations gain visibility and control as they move to cloud. They let you manage time, resources, and costs seamlessly across your projects, no matter where you are in the migration process. And because they're cloud native, you can get continuous updates and integrations that help you plan, track, and deliver more effectively. And the majority of these updates will only be available in our cloud apps. So for customers already using Tempo apps on Data Center, there's a clear advantage to migrating sooner. Tempo Cloud products offer enhanced performance, unified data across teams, and new insights you simply can't get on Data Center. It's a smoother, smarter transition. And recently, we have built this migration hub on our website, our tempo.io website. And within this, you'll be able to sign up for a personalized cloud migration consultation. You'll be able to get links to some of our cloud migration guides that have been created recently. And then we've also put together some comparison tables that show differences in features and functionality between our DC and cloud apps that'll be very valuable. And that's one of those things that, as Sneha was mentioning earlier, you really want to see what kind of parity you need, what kind of features you need in your cloud apps before you start that journey to the cloud. And we have those resources available on this site. A recording of this webinar will also be on this site, along with many other important assets and links that for our help docs and our knowledge base and a whole bunch of just great, valuable resources for you at your disposal. In addition to that, we are also having a second webinar. I mentioned this earlier in the presentation, where this is more of an ask me anything type style. Any questions that don't get answered within this one will be addressed either personally or addressed within this webinar. It's on December 3rd at 11 a.m. It's held by our product enablement team. And in addition to helping out with your cloud migration journey, Tempo now has collections for once you get there. And we've bundled together, each collection offers an integrated set of tools that are affordable, easy to adopt, and work natively in Jira. And also, if you visit our YouTube channel, you'll find other webinars we posted that showcase the project, program, and portfolio collections of our cloud apps. And for limited time only, discounts are available for qualified customers. So feel free to contact us for more details or visit tempo.io/collections. Now, key takeaways from this webinar. I'll just read these out. Migration is inevitable. Starting early gives you control and confidence. And cloud delivers security, scalability, and constant innovation. And partners like Atlassian, Praecipio, and Tempo, and cloud-ready solutions like Tempo make this journey smoother and more valuable. So bottom line, best time to start planning your cloud migration was yesterday. Second best time is today. All right, so now we're going to open it up for some discussion and Q&A with our panel. So I'm going to look over questions have yet to be answered. And this would be a question I think all four people could participate in. What are some of the first questions an organization should ask itself when planning a migration from data center to cloud?
I can take a stab at the answer first. I think some of the first questions are, what are your non-negotiables? Like we've talked about a lot, how there's not necessarily one-to-one feature parity, and sometimes there's apps that you could potentially leave behind. Of course, not Tempo, but there could be some other ones that you could look to save cost on and save time on migrating those. But I think you truly need to consider taking an audit of everything that you're currently using our products for and truly understand what those non-negotiables are, so then we can work to figure out how to get what you need in cloud. It might not look the exact same way, but that can really help us understand how to best support you in your migration journey.
Yeah, and I'd add to that too, right? Also, maybe what's not working for you today and what do you want to optimize on your way there, right? Like, not just data and apps, but even just from a ways of working perspective. What does that look like for you all?
And also from a Tempo perspective, we mentioned it earlier, but making sure that the functionality is there between the DC and the cloud apps that Tempo provides. We've done a lot of work in the past 3 years to close all the gaps between DC and cloud. There's still a few that exist, but most of them are closed for most use cases. And some features have different names, some reports have different names. Just asking the right questions and making sure that when you do migrate, that the functionality you currently use in your DC Tempo apps is there within cloud, as well as what other opportunities may exist to add on to your Tempo portfolio from a resource and cost management standpoint. What other questions we have? What are the biggest misconceptions about migrating to cloud?
As far as what are the biggest misconceptions, I think cost, timing, and resourcing. So that is exactly the misconceptions that we have used to come up with the FastShift program. So providing no additional cost to you guys with this dedicated FastShift delivery manager. Of course, like we highly, highly recommend that even though we have this FastShift delivery manager to dedicate support to you, we still need a partner to help with the integrations and the apps and the onboarding. So you really can't do it alone. So that is one of the ways we've addressed the cost to like bridge the overlapping spend during testing, and then timing, again, having that dedicated program management to help with executive escalation paths and optimize tooling really compresses those test cycles and unblocks dependencies faster. And then the resourcing, again, we're augmenting your team with Atlassian migration engineers and ourselves. So really trying to help you guys not have to dedicate all of your time. We know you're working on multiple things at once and not usually just dedicated to this migration. So trying to help provide that additional resourcing.
And from an Atlassian side also is that all migrations are not necessarily the same, right? They're all different. They all come with their own different types of complexities, which is why that Sneha mentioned it, I mentioned it, Kelly mentioned it, is that strategic planning is so critical because we need to truly understand your data shape and your complexities, your customizations, look at it from even a requirement standpoint, and then make sure we're migrating the right things to ensure success.
Yeah. And then, two sides of the same coin, right? That one, the tools do it all for you and you're there. It's not feature parity, right? I think that's a really key thing. But they're also not big and hairy and as complex as everyone thinks, because if you do that planning up front and you bring, Atlassian and the partners to the table, we have the experience. We've done massive, massive migrations over the time. So that experience helps us know what are those gotchas. We plan for those up front so we can make it a lot more seamless than, it might sound sometimes.
So great answers. Here's another one. How are leading teams preparing today for 2029? I think we touched on it a little bit, but you can answer this one.
I'd say, they're starting to think about what they want to get out of cloud. They're starting to play with cloud. They're starting to look at some of those new features and really think about, what are those optimizations we can make? And then creating that vision and that alignment across their stakeholders, because that's always a key thing, right? People fight about what apps they want to keep and what they don't. A lot of people have multiple apps that do the same features within there, and then they're built natively into cloud. How do we get that alignment early? I think is very key.
Yeah, and I'll
Very
just
good.
reiterate that from an Atlassian perspective is just starting your assessment now. Like we have something called Portfolio Insights available in our tooling that truly helps you understand where you're coming up against guardrail limits and just truly how much you might need to clean up or how much you might need to reconsider in order to like make the migration easier and your landing in cloud more seamless. So I just think that it's never hurts to start that assessment now to truly understand kind of what your migration would look like if you were to do it tomorrow, and then just kind of working from there as time allows you guys to understand what that timeline looks like.
Excellent. Well, here's a good one. And we went over some of these, but what are some of the biggest challenges teams face during the actual migration process, and how can they prepare for them?
I can start with that one. So one of the challenges that I've seen is getting enough people in time for UAT. So starting planning that UAT early and getting people from all your critical teams lined up, which we definitely help with in terms of like that timeline, and then getting them in place so that they can do the proper testing. That also really helps with change management because they're in the tools, they're working within it, and they're seeing kind of the new features, functionality, and they're more comfortable cut over.
Yeah, and adding to that a little bit too, lack of communication. It's one of the easiest things, right? Making sure you're communicating early, giving people a quick early look to cloud, giving them cheat sheets of what's going to be different. A lot of that is just what impacts adoption, and getting ahead of that makes it a lot easier.
Here's another one. How can partners and apps accelerate the journey and reduce risk?
From a partner perspective, again, a lot of it is pairing with FastShift to accelerate some of that, leveraging native tools, making sure we have that good planning up front. I think we're going to just kind of keep harping on that, understanding that plan and that vision early and making sure everyone's aligned to it. Another thing that's been very, useful bringing in a partner, we have not only partnerships with Atlassian so that we can escalate things and leverage, a lot of their technical support. We also do with a lot of the app vendors and have those relationships so that we can get security reviews, things like that, all done quicker and more efficiently, kind of as that middleman, for lack of a better term. So those relationships also help make things smoother because everyone has different, app vendors in play. So being able to kind of go across that breadth has been helpful.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and from an app vendor standpoint, I mean, Tempo is one of the oldest app vendors on the marketplace. We've helped numerous customers go migrate to the cloud. So we have so many resources at our disposal right now, and so much years of experience on staff too that they've dealt with the challenges and overcoming them and so much. So, and also what I was mentioning earlier, like with being able to sit down with you and go over a plan of like what functionality do you need out of your Tempo apps when you go to cloud, and you'll be able to make the right decision as far as which apps you'll take with you, hopefully all of them, as well as add on ones in the future. That's a good question. From your experience, what are the top benefits customers realize once they're fully migrated to the cloud?
I could kickstart that one. I think a lot of it too is just like some of the features, and what we see is during UAT and during initial testing, even with the project team, they discover features that they otherwise would have had a customization for, and at that point, it's just very exciting to them and their users to try out new things.
Gotta say AI, right? Robo and Atlassian intelligence, right? All of those investments are probably one of the quickest new adoption features that we see within cloud from a partner perspective also.
Yeah, and I'll double tap on that one. Tempo has developed, I think we're at like 9 different robo agents at this point too, that add on to our products, specifically structure, custom charts, and timesheets. In addition to Robo AI, we have a lot of more seamless integrations between our products. Being able to, like we were talking when I was talking about the collections earlier, being able to pair certain apps that the value becomes greater than the sum of its parts. So we see a lot of that too, that people have moved from the Tempo DC to Timesheets DC to Timesheets Cloud, and then they're like, oh wow, well now I have Capacity Planner and Financial Manager I can add onto it, and that gives me the ability to have plan versus actual, as well as project forecasting and so forth. So yeah, our customers have been seeing a lot of benefits once they go to cloud. Will Tempo provide guidance or hands-on assistance? Absolutely. Yeah, we as I mentioned, our cloud migration hub, that's just one self-serve option that we have, but that also has a form on there that you're able to set up a meeting with one of our cloud migration specialists rather. And then a lot of the resources that I mentioned earlier for our comparison charts, tips on what to do post-migration. We have a whole bunch of articles in our knowledge base that we'll make available to everybody on this call. So yes, yeah, and we'll provide that guidance. We'll introduce you to partners if you're not working with one already, and yeah, we'll make sure that your migration journey is as painless as possible. I think we've talked about this already, but I'm going to ask it. Is this a one-step migration or phased? Go to cloud.
The short answer is it depends. It depends on a lot of different factors, and that is why we have dedicated support to help you figure out the best path for you based on the size of your data, based on the number of users you're trying to migrate, based on any kind of freezes you have planned and with holiday scheduling. So again, I really just encourage you guys to get in touch with our team once you purchase those cloud licenses, and we can help you guys figure out what the best path is, whether it be multi-phase migration. Ideally, we get you guys to cloud as fast as possible to get you that time to value in cloud reduced, which would mean one phase ideally. But again, there are times when we recommend multi-phase migrations. Sometimes we break up the data or archive projects and do one first and the other second. But again, we will make sure that we provide that recommendation based on our knowledge and experience in doing hundreds of these migrations. Same with partners. They're also very well versed on how to get you guys across in the best way. But I also don't want to conflate a phased migration with phases of a migration. So when you start working with our team, we have different phases within the migration timeline itself, just to help you kind of break down each of the different tasks you have to do into kind of bite-sized portions. So we have like an assess, a plan and track, a test, and a prod phase. Again, like that entails like different tasks for each phase. But that is separate than like a multi-phase migration where you have multiple plan to migrate dates. So again, short answer, it depends. But we're really there to help you guys figure out the best path.
Yeah. Sneha, did you want to go?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, just to double click on that too. Like if you think about having like a single data center going to a single site, like ideally that's a single phase migration, right? It's like a lift and shift. There are some customers, of course, that have like an maybe through acquisition or whatever the case may be, they could have just this large footprint that they want to migrate under one org. We would probably at that point look at a strategy as to where we can migrate those business units in a way that makes the most sense. So you'd probably be looking at a phased migration more in a approach like that.
Yep, and that's what I was going to say, Evan. So, but we do look at how do we logically section them, right, to be the right phases as well, and sequence those in the right way. So,
what are some of the best practices for managing user adoption and change during a migration?
So go ahead.
oh, you can go first, Kevin.
No, you go this time. I went last time.
Okay. So best practices for managing user adoption, obviously having that change plan early, communications, and a training and enablement can go so far, right? Whether it's user documentation of those delta differences, even from a navigational standpoint, it's going to look different. Get that out early, allow people to get in there. You can build sandboxes, right? Things that people can get used to the looks and feels. Atlassian's got a lot of free university courses on some of those delta differences. Anything you can do to kind of prepare early, so while you're going through the migration, they're ready by the time you go live.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I would also say too is that recognizing that building a change management plan early is critical, right? So like when we're doing our strategic planning, starting to think about that, but also looking at change management as a longer process versus just a single phase towards the end. And just constant communicate. Sneha mentioned this earlier, and it's great. Like just constant communication with your users so that they could see what's coming. They can leverage those university courses. They could leverage whatever documentation that we can provide. We have some resources as well that can help with that.
Yeah, and same with us on the Tempo side. Our knowledge base is our help centers. We have so many different instructional videos and how to get up and running with cloud apps. And as I was again, I'm mentioning it again, but the comparison charts we have, like what are the differences between our DC and cloud apps. There's just, and we'll be able to once we talk to you, we'll be able to point you in the right direction of the best resources that are for your business. Just to make sure you're making the right decision and preparing as much. Make sure you get those resources out to the users of the apps as soon as possible before you even make that migration. Checking to see what other questions are here. We have a few more minutes. This could be either for Atlassian or Praecipio. Should Jira and Confluence be migrated in parallel?
It's going to depend. A lot of organizations do. There are some that don't, and there's reasons for that. Again, Evan mentioned it earlier. Sometimes folks have multiple Jira instances in a single Confluence, right? There's just approaches you take for different reasons that you don't migrate them in parallel or you do. But there's always kind of that intermediate area where we are doing redirects and different things to make sure integrations don't break and stuff. But it just is part of that planning phase to really decide what the best approach is.
Yeah, and one other piece to look at too is just the overall downtime window you have, right? So time is key. And in the event that you just have two really, really large products, there it might be the case where we want to strategically fit one in one weekend and one in the other weekend as well. But that's the Sneha's point. That's all done in planning and strategic planning to where we build out something that we're really comfortable testing too.
I think we have time for one more question here. I know this has been mentioned, and I don't know if there's a solid answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. So how long does it usually take? Assuming they mean cloud migration, and what kind of issues can we expect?
It depends. I feel like a broken record, but what we're really confident in is that with FastShift and with the accelerated tooling and support that we have available for customers, we're really trying to get those migration timelines in the sweet spot of 90 days. Again, there's a couple factors to consider here, like your size and your complexity, but we really believe that we have the support and tooling in place to get that timeline to 90 days if, of course, you're willing to work with us on that. But for the bigger migrations, we usually try to get around less than 6 months. But we are really trying to move away from like migrations taking year plus and get it down to 6 months or less.
Yeah, and I'd say too, it depends on the outcomes you're looking to get, right? If you have done a lot of consolidations and different orgs coming together and you want to actually modernize your ways of working as going through there, right? Data migration becomes a part of it now. And then you're looking at more of a transformational program, and those tend to take a little bit longer. But again, all of these different variables can play into that timeline.
Excellent. Thanks for that. I think we're pretty much at time. So just want to give a big thank you to all the people that attended this webinar and registered. I just want to remind you that this webinar is being recorded. It will be sent out in a follow-up email to all registrants and attendees. Thank you, Kelly and Evan. Thank you, Sneha. This has been very educational for me, as well as the audience, and I appreciate you giving us our time. And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.